Jai Guru, everyone.
Jai Guru. And welcome to this episode of Yogananda podcast, where we are on chapter 15, part 5 of the Autobiography of a Yogi. So we're making our way through chapter 15, and we're going to kick off some exciting new topics that we haven't covered before on this episode regarding music, the science of music. So we'll cover it over the next couple of episodes. So it's going to be a fun deep dive. Before we get into this episode, we should say actually Lauren's not here with us today. You've got the Musketeers today, not the quartet, Priyank and Mike and myself to take you through this episode. But Lauren did cover the last episode, Priyank, so she's not here to do the prior episode recap. So you're going to kindly take us through what happened in the last episode, part 15.4.
Sure thing. Yes, last episode we covered the curious incident of the missing lamp, which also is curious after the cauliflower robbery. So there's a second part of this whole weird stories. Essentially, Sri Yukteswar tricks Mukunda and essentially don't take life so seriously, and it's a bit of a fun section, and also teaches us not to try and completely think we understand Sri Yukteswar or any of our gurus. They're all capable of tricking us. And then we discussed miracles and the hand of God, and how Param Guruji influenced the clouds and the rains from not killing them, and then not the intense heat not killing them whilst they were doing their procession. And then we talked about sincere desires and what that means. And then we got to here.
Nice. So we're looking first at the festivities that Sri Yukteswar kicked off. He sponsored 4 yearly festivals, and there was a winter solstice celebration held in Serampore. He also held the equinox festivals. So he was pretty keen on the equinoxes and the solstices. Students, we're told, gathered from far and near. And it got me thinking, religious festivities. Has any of us been a part of any religious festivities? I'm looking to you, Priyank, for some unknown reason. Have you?
More than I can care to imagine or state, especially being from an Indian background. There's a festival for every occasion and every month.
In general, what is a religious festivity?
It usually celebrates a certain important passage of time, whether that's astrological or spiritual in terms of birthdays and mahasamadhis and things like that. But I suppose they also occur interestingly in interesting times astrologically. So it's they kind of marry, and hence they're I suppose they're important for and conducive to our spiritual growth if we if we follow them.
It's funny that there's a bit of a mystery around that in this day and age, that the meaning of some religious festivals have been lost. And I heard with some of them, you're up all night, you're up dancing all night, and that the real meaning for that is to keep the spine straight so that you're helping the advancement of your evolution. But pretty cool stuff. Really, we have sorry, Mike, you put up your hand about festivities.
Yeah, because I think one cool thing about the religious festivities is that oftentimes when we go observe them in the SRF circle, they often say that they're also observed in the astral plane, and the astral beings there are also celebrating on the same day, and you get a special vibration and you get special blessings. So it is definitely beneficial to also celebrate them here to tune in with that spirit.
Nice. And why equinox and solstices? Well, the equinox, the solar equinox, is the moment in time when the sun crosses the Earth's equator. So that's to say that the sun appears directly above the equator rather than north or south of the equator. So on the day of the equinox, the sun appears to rise due east and set due west. So exactly that. And it occurs twice a year, 20th of March, 23rd of September. Priyank?
Yeah, and it's also is that not also the longest day of the year as well on that day?
No, it's the time where the day and the night are exactly the same
equal.
length.
Yeah, equal.
Yeah. And yeah, what's the significance?
If you want to learn a really, really long German word, because we got long German words, one is the translation for equinox is Tag und Nacht gleiche, which means day and night equality. So we put this all in one word.
So nice and literal. The derivative equinox as well in Latin, I suppose. Yeah. And the solstice is when the sun reaches its most northerly or southerly excursion relative to the celestial equator on the celestial sphere. So they occur around the 20 or 22nd of June, 22nd of December. And it differs just to a slight degree every year, and then it's corrected every 4 years, just for any sort of detail-oriented folks that want to know why that's different every year due to the Earth's rotation.
Isn't that the one where that's the longest and the shortest days of the year then? The summer and the June and then the December. Shortest summer solstice and the winter solstice.
Yeah. 21st of June. Yeah. Indeed. Normally around there. Indeed. The day that we look forward to in Northern Ireland, being in Northern Hemisphere, trying to get a bit more sun. Long winter sets in. So what I mean, Priyank, you know a little bit about this then, the significance of these days.
Yeah, I just did a bit of research on which of the 4 festivals relate to the equinoxes and the solstices that we just mentioned, and which ones Yukteswar would have celebrated. And it seems that the 4 going chronologically would have been the start of the year. Would have been the first one would have been the Easter, which is the spring equinox, and obviously there's the spiritual significance of the resurrection of Christ as well, which is important. And then there's the summer solstice in June 21st, around that time, which is also celebrated with the Ratha Yatra, which is a colossal celebration in Jagannath Puri, where the deities are kind of taken out of the temple and renewed as well. And then there's the autumn equinox, which is in September, which occurs exactly in that Janmashtami, which is beloved Krishna's birthday. And then finally, there's the winter solstice, which is towards the end of December. And that is also coincides with Makara Sankranti, which is the Bengali New Year. And this is, he would have celebrated, we know for sure, because it's mentioned in the Swami Satyananda's book that Sri Yukteswar followed that one. So those are the 4, I believe, festivals that he's referring to here.
Isn't it funny that often in different cultures, the festivals happen to be at around the same time, and it's often the solstices and the equinoxes. Like I looked into for the origins specifically for in the German culture for Easter and Christmas, and they said that both of those days were observed before, like the spring equinox in North German was Germanic was called Ostara, and from that word the word Easter derived, and it happens that it was the same time of the resurrection of Christ, so they merged it, and it was the same for Christmas because I think the name was Yuli or Yule, and that was also a Germanic festival that was observed exactly the time of Christmas. And that was the time that Christ was born. So again, worked perfectly, but it also somehow happened to be around the same time. And I didn't know that until I saw the card earlier prepared by Priyank, but that in autumn the equinox coincides with the birth of Krishna, which is amazing. So I guess those great saints, they special things happen at special times.
But Mike, you can't. Germans can't take credit for Christmas. That's like Coca-Cola takes the credit fully because gave us the red Santa and all that good stuff.
Green, yeah.
Yeah, I think taking credit is the wrong word, but we can't just say we've celebrated at the same time before something different. Yeah,
Coca-Cola tries to take credit, so I'm sure we can all try.
I think they take credit for Santa Claus, the red Santa Claus.
Yeah, and the chimney.
I think they played a role.
Yeah.
They played a role in popularizing that.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. If you want to know more about the origins of the Christmas tree and lights and all that stuff, you can look into more Germanic folklore. There's some interesting bits there as well. So I read online, actually, Shiva was said to have sat as an Ardhanari, if you pronounce that for us, Priyank.
Ardhanari, probably.
Thank you. Half woman, half man, because masculine and feminine are on an even keel on the day of the equinox, which is pretty cool. So we can balance the feminine and masculine energy within ourselves on these days quite nicely. And so the spiritual significance of these days is something really quite strong. And Sri Yukteswar was paying homage to this, where he sponsoring these festivities, got everybody together to celebrate, sing and dance. And we're going to look at exactly what they were doing then in the festivities. And so the festivities said Mukunda taking part in this. Sorry, before I jump into it, Priyank, do you want to?
Yeah, just a small note here that he said that during the winter solstice in Serampore, the first one he attended left him with a permanent blessing. I don't know if you're going to cover that, but I believe that is when Sri Yukteswar was looking at Mukunda's weight and how thin he was, and then essentially he healed him. He made him believe that don't believe that you're sick. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but he had chronic dyspepsia, and as soon as he went home, it kind of disappeared on his journey back, and his family were a bit startled. Indeed. So I think that is he's talking about the permanent blessing there on that line.
Permanent blessing. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for cleaning that up. Yeah, we see that the devotees, really, the people who gathered for the festivities, they were barefoot, and there was a procession along the streets, but they were going barefoot. I wondered to myself, is it just the obvious note to say that this was a show of reverence? But what did you guys think?
Yeah, it's also obviously the holy ground and being grounded. There's that element, but generally, you go into any holy place, you can't wear your footwear. One of the reasons for that is because sometimes it's leather, but I think there's a deeper purpose about the grounding and touching the sacred soil, especially like around Krishna's, where he did his lila in Vrindavan. But I think you have to also see that in these areas your shoes could get lost. So, and especially with tens of thousands of people. So this happened to me. So if you don't wear the shoes, then they can't get lost.
Yeah, you can't carry them in a little bag or something with you, no. Everything.
You can't. Everything's like it's so manic that it's just going to get lost. And yeah.
Could you imagine that in London or something? Everybody's so cautious about their shoes.
Yeah, well, interestingly, when I had an Indian friend that came to the center, devout Hindu, and he came to the center thinking it's a temple, and he couldn't take his shoes inside. He's like, no, there's no way I can. He left his shoes at the door, and he's the only person I've noted at in a London centre anyway, that to remove the shoes before going in. In India, in all the centres in India, you remove your shoes outside the meditation hall, but only in UK and the West, I suppose. We like our footwear. It's contains the odors.
Designer foot.
I would imagine it also difficult, like when you have a place where you have cold winters and you wear real boots and then everyone has to take them off. Might not be as practical, but and then yeah.
I like your comment, Priyank, about grounding. I think that's it rings true to my ears when I hear it. If the purpose of the day is to try to accelerate your evolution by using the forces of the sun and the earth and the positions in space, then yeah, this rings true to my ears. And we see hundreds of students and the voices of them ringing out with sweet religious songs. There was a few musicians that they played flute and kol kartal, drums and cymbals. And I wonder what songs they played specifically, if it was noted anywhere. I couldn't see it online, so it would have been nice to know. There was a lot of enthusiasm.
We've got the Cosmic Chants book, and if you take the there's an Indian print of the Cosmic Chants book, and that one has some very traditional Hindi and Sanskrit chants, which Guruji would have, no doubt, some of them would have been from Yukteswar and Lahiri Mahasaya, etc.
Yeah, we might get some hints as to what they were later on, though. Yeah, just dangling something there for the listeners, for those who haven't pre-read what we're about to look at. And so yeah, we see enthusiastic townsfolk. They were strewed on the path. They were on the path throwing flowers and petals, it seems, and they were glad to be summoned from their day-to-day tasks to listen to the resounding praise, as Yogananda puts it, of the Lord's blessed name. And this we see their long tour. So the long tour, I presume it would have been quite a significant one then, maybe following a circuit as such, but it ended in the courtyard of the Hermitage in Serampore. Priyank.
Just a comment about the Lord's blessed name. There's a strong belief amongst Indians that if you die with the Lord's name on your lips, then you'll attain, you'll be liberated and no more rebirth for you, regardless of what your how you've led your life. So there's this one quite epic tale where there's this like horrific there's a horrific man, and he I forget his name, but he's essentially a demon, but he did this one thing, or his wife did this one thing of naming his son Narayan. Narayan is like the name for God, so he was on his, so he led a terrible life, as I say, and he on his deathbed, he was still pretty evil, but and thinking terrible things. But on his deathbed, he was, just before he was about to leave, he called out to his son Narayan, and he left his body, just saying his son's name, and then the angels of death came, and they were obviously to take him to some terrible terrible afterlife, yeah. And the angels came and said, no, this is a devotee of God. He said the key word. Narayan is the name of the Lord, so you can't take him. And so that's kind of the story, is that the meaning is that basically keep reciting God's name, and often there's some paths that just like all you do is just say God's name. Like you'll say, the only word you'll say, for example, is Ram. You'll say Ram, Ram, Ram. Anything to anything, you'll say Ram. Ram is yes, Ram is no. Every single word is Ram, so it's quite powerful. And also Gandhi, if you saw the film in the famous Ben Kingsley film of Gandhi. When he was assassinated, the English translation or what he said was, "Oh God," after he got shot and left. But he actually said in Hindi, "Hey Ram," and then he left. So it's a really poor translation, because Ram is obviously the key word, and to have that on your lips at the moment of departure means that you're quite an elevated soul generally. So yeah, his birth would have been, he wouldn't have had to endure any more human birth, shall we say.
Well, it's yeah, that's nice. Good to know. Note to self.
Wait for the last second and then start. Yeah.
All about the timing. All about the time.
Yeah.
There's a really cool part here where when the tour ended, the devotees, these hundreds, we can imagine hundreds of them, barefoot, coming in, chanting with music, playing the flutes and the drums and cymbals, and then they encircled the guru, Sri Yukteswar. So whilst the students were on the upper balconies, they showered us with marigold blossoms. I just thought that was something. It really was. It's like out of a movie, isn't it? And I thought to myself,
fairy tale.
Yeah, it's very fairy tale. But I did think to myself, with Sri Yukteswar, my image that I have of Sri Yukteswar, I almost didn't think that he would be wanting something like this, like this sort of adoration of sorts. It didn't really fit the picture. So I wondered, would he have actually organized this, or is this something from the devotees? But we're not to know necessarily. But it did strike me. He's obviously happy to act as the symbol of sorts in this celebration, I would imagine. But yeah, something really beautiful. I would love to have witnessed this and been there for that, because it really just seems something, like you said, Priyank, out of a fairy tale scene. And so we get to the busy part of the festival, the service part of the festival, where there are many guests, and I could only imagine the numbers, because it's described that the guests would have went upstairs to receive a pudding, and it's of chana and oranges. Has anybody had chana and oranges pudding? No? It kind of reminds me of a pudding made of corn that's popular in Brazil. And, it's more of a sweet thing, not quite with oranges. But I imagined it, when I looked at the images, it looks very similar to what we have in Brazil. Priyank?
Yeah, I would have thought I would have had this in my travels, but I can't recall such a thing. But listeners, I need your help, because I'm really intrigued as to what chana and oranges, what this dessert is, what the chana dessert is. Chana is like chickpeas. So I don't know what dessert that would be, but I'm really intrigued, because lots of different parts of India have different desserts. Like when I was in Puri, just earlier this year, visiting Sri Yukteswar's ashram, there was a big festival going on, and everyone was having this sesame seed dessert that's only had at that specific time, because it was winter. Sesame is really good for generating heat, so that's why they have that that during that time. So yeah, if anyone knows, please do message.
Yeah, Mike?
Chris just sent me a Google search for chana pudding with oranges, and it looks like an acai bowl, so it looks like a very hipster breakfast here. So I would like totally like one right now for breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah. You could see that on the menu in a cheeky LA cafe. Couldn't you, like?
Yeah.
25 bucks.
Yeah, served in a mason jar. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
$25 minimum for that in LA. But yeah, it looks really, really great, and I'm sure extremely nutritious and delicious. And Yogananda is describing how he made his way to a group of brother disciples, and they were all serving as cooks for the day. And for such large gatherings, the cooking had to be done outdoors in these huge cauldrons. I actually did, with Barbara, serve 300 people. And we had, 2 or 3 chefs. They cooked everything and we transported all the food over to this location, and we served everybody. So I'm getting sort of fond memories and flashbacks of this, and what we're about to discuss in terms of the service. And he's saying, Yogananda, that they improvised a wood burning brick stove that was very smoky, and it produced a lot of tears in the eyes of the cooks now turned, or sorry, the devotees now turned cooks, but they laughed merrily at the work. And it's just a really sweet comment, Priyank.
Yeah, the next line's quite nice. That is, the Indian festivals, they're heavily problematic in terms of coordination and it's logistics. They're never considered troublesome. And I remember that's so true, because I was at an ISKCON festival once, and we were cleaning these huge cauldron pots, as they refer to here, and they're so big that literally I've been to some ashrams in India and you can bath in them. That's how colossal they are. They're colossal. So yeah, you can imagine, like, you have these huge hand what are they called, spatulas and things like that to turn the vegetables and things. But I remember it's so fun. It's, even though like that you said, it sounds like it's going to be a colossal amount of work. The service I was doing that day was or that week was the washing up duties. So we got very dirty washing this stuff up, and we're very oily as well. But it was so fun, and because we had music, the Sankirtans playing in the background, and everyone was singing and smiling. And when you'd wash one, you'd think, oh, thank heavens, that's done. And then another one would come, and everyone's part of playing this game. So the person that brings the next pot for you to wash, he'll be like, more nectar for you, devotees. You got some more karma to churn and work through, and we will happily partake in that.
It's such a beautiful gesture to offer free food to everybody. That's something you see, I'm sure in India much more than in the West. And there's this YouTube video I watched a long time ago that kind of I can't forget, about the Golden Temple in Amritsar, where they make 100,000 meals per day, every single day, which is crazy. Wow. And I think it turned into quite a touristy thing these days now, because I keep seeing that now on Instagram and on social media, that people go to Amritsar and get a free meal there just to be part of this. And I don't know, it's just something that I feel is a bit lacking here. I think that it would be an amazing gesture if someone would do that, because it doesn't only you give, but you also bring people together of all classes and of all, just of and maybe somebody you meet someone there, you kind of share brotherhood with your fellow friends and fellow people who live in your city. So I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, in Sikh temples and gurudwaras, this is a common practice, and as it is in some Hindu temples as well for certain times of the day. But the Sikhs do it fantastically, and the food is really good as well. Superb, and everyone prepares the food with such devotion. It's just a joy to see everyone serving, and people from all faiths come and take part. It's just beautiful.
Serving 300 people that I did, we had maybe 2 or 3 big cauldron type things, but not big enough that you couldn't carry them. The cauldrons that you're describing, Priyank, and that's in here, these huge cauldrons that had to be, put outdoors because they couldn't be brought inside, tells us how many people would have been there, to a good extent, in the thousands, right? To many multiples of 300. So that's it would have been some pretty crazy fun day. And Yogananda describes it that every devotee was gladly doing their part. They were supplying money, rice, vegetables, or their personal services, and that's something that really resonated with me, because having served 300 people, such a simple thing to do, but brings so much joy. And Yogananda talks about this a lot in terms of service and how life should be chiefly service. And there's a nice reading of Yogananda's quotes that we have, and Mike's going to take us away.
Life should be chiefly service. Without that ideal, the intelligence that God has given you is not reaching out toward its goal. When in service, you forget the little self, you will feel the big self of spirit. As the vital rays of the sun nurture all, so should you spread rays of hope in the hearts of the poor and forsaken. Kindle courage in the hearts of the despondent, and light a new strength in the hearts of those who think that they are failures. When you realize that life is a joyous battle of duty and at the same time a passing dream, and when you become filled with the joy of making others happy by giving them kindness and peace, in God's eyes, your life is a success.
Nice. Thanks, Mike.
Wow.
And here we have Sri Yukteswar. He was born in 10th of May, 1855. And this festival, it would have been the first festival that Yogananda as Mukunda been to. So we can surmise that it was in the late teens in 1918, something like that. So yeah, he would have been of an age, Sri Yukteswar. But Yogananda describes his guru as being in their midst and, supervising the details of the feast. And he was busy in every moment. And notably, he was keeping pace with the most energetic young student. So he was getting his sleeves rolled up and really not taking a back seat and, sitting back and enjoying himself of sorts. So he was really orchestrating the entire festival, which is great to see. And the Sankirtan, as Yogananda goes on to describe, this is group chanting, really when a person sort of loudly chants and glorifies the Lord's activities, qualities, form, etc. So this is accompanied with the harmonium and hand-beaten Indian drums that they had there. And this was in progress on the second story of the hermitage. Priyank.
Yeah, the hand-beaten is an interesting point because most Western drums, especially in orchestras and things like that, they're usually with a drumstick, right? But in other countries and other parts of the world, the hands they've stuck to the hands, even though we can use sticks now. They've stuck to the hands. But in Indian instruments, the tabla and the mridangam, the drums that are used, it's not just hands; it's literally fingers, individual fingers. So imagine for every one slap of the drum, you can use 5, and each finger takes a different part of the skin of the drum, the circular bit, and you get a different sound. And then they also use their what's it called, wrist, and the palm of their hands, and they kind of mellow and drown out the sound, and like they bend the note. So it's so much more advanced than just a simple drum beat. And if you like, you can have sometimes a musical piece only played by drums, and you'd think that sounds insane. It's just a beat, a rhythm. But actually, no. Drums are tuned to a certain note. I remember I was in where was I? I was in in Calcutta in Dakshineshwar temple, and they had a kirtan event, and the head swami, before he started, they got professional kirtan players, like really, really good, and that have done concerts and things like that. And he asked him, okay, for this, he told him what songs he was going to play and what key he was going to play it in, and the guy had prepared 2 sets of drums, yeah, one for each melody and one for each bass note. And he's like, before they started, I was watching them. He said, "Can you just play it to this key?" And then he said, "No, that's off." And then he took the drums and he very finely tuned it for 10 minutes. Each drum he finely tuned, played his harmonium, played it, sung, played his harmonium, sung, and then gave it back to him. So this was a professional tabla player. And so this is like how precise the music has to be, and even like the intricacies of the tabla or the drum beat with the piece that they're singing. And he explained essentially a lot of the stuff we're going to hear in the next episode about the science of Indian music.
Nice. And Yogananda is attributed to having brought in chanting or devotional chanting and this universal art into the United States, into the West in general, when he arrived in 1920. And there were thousands of people experiencing the chants together in devotion to God at his services. And he often described, chanting as an effective form of yoga or spiritual discipline. And it's something I've always loved. I've always loved the chanting because I never grew up with it at all in Northern Ireland. There's some kind of hymns and prayers that you might do in Christian practice, but nowhere near as frequent in Hindu practices. It's the chanting devotional aspect is really, really strong. So I really, really love that. We have a reading, Priyank, on this aspect of spiritual discipline.
With concentration and sincere devotion, rather than the mere increasing of emotion, you can apply yourself to this divine art form, one that Paramahansa Ji promises has wonderful results. While praying or chanting, do not think of the words, but of their meaning, and intensely, mentally offer the thought behind them to God, he says in the Self-Realization Fellowship lessons. And your prayer will drop straight like a plummet into the depths of the sea of God's consciousness.
There you go. One way to amplify the microphone of the mind. Concentration and sincere devotion and chanting. Knew it was onto something when I loved that. I've got a really fond memory of us. Was it just the 3 of us doing a kirtan at your home, Priyank? That was great.
Yeah.
Just 3 people. I really enjoyed it. I've never done that before, but that was a nice experience. I was desperately trying to keep up with my cymbal play.
You did very well.
Harder than I thought initially. Yeah, really, really great. And Sri Yukteswar was listening appreciatively to the music. And just as you were saying, Priyank, about the keys, about the notations, Sri Yukteswar flagged that, hey, they're off key. And he left the company of the cooks and went out to the musicians. And soon enough, when the melody was heard again, it was heard correctly this time. So Sri Yukteswar was acutely aware of the tonations and having it in the right key. Correct.
Indeed. And it's even someone who's not musically trained can feel when people are singing off key. It kind of hurts hurts your sense of hearing, doesn't it? It's like when someone's like, obviously not this bad, but if someone's like with their fingernails going across a chalkboard, it's not that bad, but to a musician it probably would be that bad. But most of us can hear when it's off, and then conversely you can hear when it's in tune as well. And then when it's in tune, the singer need not be this amazing singer. It doesn't need to be like Mariah Carey or Celine Dion. They can be just anyone, and as long as they're like concentrated and their voice is in pitch, then it like elevates whatever you're doing. It kind of like magnifies your concentration, and like you kind of feel like closing your eyes. And especially if it's not like not like a rock song, one that actually requires the pitch to be sustained, and its melody kind of captures your heart.
And there are combinations of notes that convey certain feelings. And I started learning piano and guitar at some point, long time ago. But one thing that I remember is that they told me, learn those 3 chords and you will be able to do 200 songs or something, right?
Yeah.
and because they're so powerful that they're being reused over and over again.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah. All I heard about frequencies and tuning was the conspiracy around the 440 hertz versus 432, and how the 432 is much more harmonious sound, but we have tuned many instruments to 440. I didn't do enough research into that to tell you if it's true or not. But maybe our listeners, or maybe there's some musicians out there that know something about that, if that's true or not. But yeah, the frequencies and healing frequencies and harmonics, I suppose we're going to look into that in more detail in the next episode, right? To the structure and science behind the music. And we do have a bit of a change of gear in terms of the describing of what's going on in the festival, to Yogananda talking about the Sama Veda here, and he throws this in and he says this Veda contains the world's earliest writings on musical science. And so in detail, he goes into saying that in India, the music, the painting, the drama, they're considered divine arts. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the eternal trinity, were first musicians. Shiva, in his aspect of Nataraja, the cosmic dancer, is scripturally represented as having worked in the infinite modes of rhythm in the processes of universal creation, preservation, and destruction, while Brahma and Vishnu accentuated the time beat, Brahma changing the symbols and Vishnu sounding the mridanga, or holy drum. So he goes into details for us here. And looking into this myself, I have to say I didn't research it the first time I read it, but doing a bit of a deep dive on it. The Sama Veda, it's the ancient Hindu Vedic scripture. It's one of the 4 main Vedas of Hinduism, and it contains selected chants defining their proper melodic intonation. And that's probably one of the more critical aspects of what we're talking about here, as applicable to the Vedic rituals. So the Sama means melody, and Veda means knowledge. So Sama Veda, so it's knowledge, melody, knowledge, has been described as the book of song, or the Veda of chants, or even the Yoga of song. And so we have a reading in the Bhagavad Gita. I found it mentioned there, chapter 10, verse 22. And this is where Lord Krishna has declared, among the Vedas, I am Sama Veda. Mike has the commentary by Paramahansa Yogananda.
I love that section. He also says, among the yagyas, I'm Chapa Yagya, and among the rivers, I'm the mighty Ganges. Among the mountains, I'm the Himalayas. It's a really
good memory.
Yeah.
Rest.
All right. Some pendants do not conquer with the Gita's commendation of the Sama Veda, as it is generally considered a derivation in the form of metric hymns from the verses in the more honored Rig Veda. A deeper significance is here implied. Sama means calm or tranquil, from the word saman, from sa, meditation. The acquisition of true knowledge, Veda, truth realization, comes not from scriptural tenets or outward rituals, but from inner intuitive perception.
When by meditation, interiorization, the mind is tranquil, the attention of the yogi focuses at the Kutastha center of universal consciousness in the forehead and through the omniscient intuitive vision of the spiritual eye. The devotee becomes a seer of Veda truth. In the Vedas, and particularly in the rhythmic meter of the Sama Veda, there is strictly regulated order of the words and phonological rules for the combination of sounds and for the recitation of letters, which conduce to such interiorization. Each syllable is endowed with significance and a spiritual vibration. And I found in the Wikipedia link to this something cool. It said that the Sama Veda Samhita is not to be read or recited like other texts in the Vedas. It has to be accompanied with a musical score, which is like heard and which is melodic. And then those melodies existed before the actual words. So the words were then added to the melody, which is quite cool.
I've had it described to me many years ago before I started my yoga practice that the symbology, with the symbols of words, you can simply create blueprints in the astral world, and then you can bring certain bits toward you. But obviously, it has to be respected and done, for the highest good.
Can you explain that again, Chris? That sounded very interesting.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into details of this, but so there was a chant that I was given years ago that in meditation you can create a body, a spherical body, or the Star of David. I forget the name for it. The two triangles interwoven to each other. The names are skipping me right now, but you can use that actually to envelop yourself in meditation and then transport yourself in astral form. And it almost acts as a body of energy to be able to assist the concentrative effort in doing certain things in astral. Apparently, this is how it was given to me years and years ago before I even got involved in the subject. But it was a chant, three syllables of a word that was able to form the shapes and combine them with concentration and be able to utilize that in the practice that we were doing.
You're thinking of it, penta something, is it? Not that word.
Pentagram?
Pentecost, something like that. I don't know.
Okay. The pentagram is the star. Yeah. We'll maybe have to come back to it because I think researching it right now is
needs more research.
Yeah, and be able to do two things at once. And hexagram, is it a hexagram? No, it's not a hexagram. The compound of two equilateral triangles, but then that's shaped in 3D. You can create that in astral form using certain chants and things like this. But yeah, it was very interesting getting exposed to these concepts and ideas. And it just shows how important it is to pronunciate certain words when you're chanting. So this is what Yogananda is bringing our attention to. And he goes on to talk about the Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom. And there's a great picture that I found online. So Saraswati is the goddess of wisdom, symbolized as performing on the vena. She has 4 hands, 4 arms, and they all represent different things. So the person, different aspects of human personality in learning, relative to learning. So the intellect, the alertness, mind, and ego. So that's what the 4 arms represent. So if anybody ever searches the goddess of wisdom, Saraswati, that's what they'll see. So alertness, mind, ego, intellect being represented there. And she usually is holding this vena, and the vena, written V-I-N-A in English, but often written differently, V-E-E-N-A. Priyank tells me it's pronounced the same. So that's a musical instrument. And this musical instrument is rather interesting. So it's got a string, used to be many years ago, made out of sort of hunting bowstring, and 100 to 1 string, so between 1 and 100 strings can be used. They're composed of many different materials. It's like a acoustic guitar shape. Many different materials, like it says eagle bone online, that I thought was interesting, bamboo, wood, and coconut shells. So many different materials. Sounds amazing. I looked at it on YouTube. We actually have a bit of a clip for our listeners and viewers to enjoy. It's only 15 seconds, but it'll give us an idea of really what this instrument can do. I believe we can play it now. Right, guys? There we go. So that is what Saraswati is holding, and depicted is holding, probably playing. The stringed instrument itself, really, really impressive. Definitely, when I look at it, I have this urge that I want to go and learn how to play it, because it just it seems like you can do so much with it. Never heard of it when I was growing up in the West, but looks amazing. And Krishna, as an incarnation of Vishnu, Yogananda goes on to say, is shown in Hindu art with a flute, and on it he plays the enrapturing song that recalls to their true home the human souls wandering in maya-delusion. So Yogananda is simply telling us how important these musical instruments are with the likes of Krishna, Saraswati, and so on, and for us to, I suppose, go in and research and learn, which is nice. And the mother Saraswati, as it said, the goddess of learning, wisdom, her blessings, it said, are vital to the advancement of our happiness. And it's someone to pray to, a deity to pray to. And there you go. So there's plenty to break down there. And that, in this part of the chapter, sort of teases up for what's coming next, where it is really more of a deep dive into musical science. And who better than Priyank to take us through that? So what do we have to look forward to next episode, Priyank?
There's a very profound and very detailed explanation of Indian classical music, and it's gone into some significant detail and depth. And I said at the start of this chapter, it's probably more detail than any other topic bar Kriya Yoga. He's gone into detail here. So for that reason, it must be exceptionally important. And we'll go through all of that line by line. And I did a little bit of study of this when I was younger. And we just mentioned goddess Saraswati, and there's a beautiful chant associated with goddess Saraswati, which I may be able to chant, and we'll probably end it there. Has anyone's got anything else?
No, that's
good.
That sounds good. We're going to deep dive more into this in the next episode. So thanks everybody for listening, and join us there in the next episode. Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.